I can see it.
Welcome to another session of Home Ed Me podcast. So we are on session number 6, episode number 6, and we're looking at Bsl Maths. So if this is the first time that you're joining in, so the Home Ed Me podcast is for parents, for educators, for homeschoolers, for teachers, anyone that works with kids. And each week we explore a different topic. So last week we were looking at science. This week, we're going to be looking at Bsl Maths. So that's British Sign Language Maths. So we've got the amazing Marijke. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
So Marijke does some amazing work where she teaches kids sign language, but in terms of maths, which I think is really amazing. And it's a niche. It's not many people do that at the moment. So even though I'm a mathematician, I was really fascinated with what Marijke does. And I thought I'd share this with the world. So Marijke, welcome.
Thank you. Very excited to be here and to tell you all about the stuff I'm doing. How long have I got?
That's great. That's great. So we're going to start off with a bit about you. What was your experience like of school? And were you always into maths? And have you always done maths?
Well, the first thing I'll probably have to say is that I'm a CODA. So CODA stands for Child of Deaf Adults. Okay. So I was the only hearing child in a deaf family. So I'm even an OH-CODA, an only hearing CODA. There's only a very few of us, and we have a group, American and British CODAs. We talk and get together and share our history and our culture and stuff.
Is it usual if you've got 2 deaf parents, is it usual for the kids to also inherit that from their parents?
No, not at all. A lot of the time you will have a family where the parents are deaf, but the children are hearing. So the children usually have hearing siblings, so they can share the responsibility a little bit. Whereas in my case, and in the case of a few other people, when you're the only hearing child in a deaf family, all the responsibility gets put on you. Yeah. That's a whole other psychological, discussion we can have about that. But that sort of means that initially, when I was growing up, I was completely immersed in the deaf world. You can see when I'm talking, my hands still go everywhere. It's the way I talk. My first language was sign language. And then, I was always destined by the deaf community. I was always destined to become a teacher for the deaf. Now, being a typical teenager, I said, I'm not doing that. Not in a million years. I'm going to get out of this whole deaf community and blah, blah, blah. So I rebelled, obviously, and I did science. What a rebellion. I became a scientist. I did biomedical sciences, and I became a cancer immunologist. And I worked on the PhD, and I worked on dendritic cells, and I did that for 6 years, and it was amazing. Again, I was still involved in the deaf community, obviously, through my parents and my sister's school and all that. But it was like a side thing to my own professional life.
So let's go back for a little while to your primary life. So you said that your first language was a sign language. Yeah. So how was that with your first experience? Because I'm fascinated, because you hadn't heard people talk, not in your immediate family anyway. So no. When was the first time you came across spoken language?
I personally don't remember that. It's just always been there. But one of my aunts said to me that I was about 2 years old, and I used to come to family gatherings and I used to sign. So they had to say to me, this is not what we do here. Here we speak. And I was like, what? How? Yeah. And I think then spending time with family has taught me how to speak. But also what my mum did purposely, she bought a radio. So she always had the radio on. So I'm not sure if I learned to speak from that, but the radio. And she always made sure that when the telly was on, the sound was on as well. Because of course in a lot of deaf households, the sound goes off because there's no point. So, but the interesting thing is, my first language is sign language, and so I'm Belgian, so I was brought up in Flemish, but something happened in my brain because I speak 5 languages and 2 sign languages.
Wow.
So so something as the way I was brought up has done something in my brain that's helped me to find learning languages really easy. So it's brilliant.
So you think it'd be the opposite? You think someone that's brought up in a household where language isn't the main thing and main focus, that you would actually find it more difficult to engage with different...
I know, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's really interesting, yeah. And I can just switch from one to the next, yeah. So it's it is interesting. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of research out there, you know, that could use someone like me. But but I did. If I would have had some good careers advice in school, it would have probably been a better idea to send me in the language direction.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did science and I became a scientist. But after 6 years, I'd met my husband, and my husband had a job offer to go and work in Malaysia.
Okay.
So we then moved to Malaysia. I lived there for 4 years. I had my son there, and I wasn't allowed to work. So, but I was still doing a lot of reading and stuff. And then after that, we moved to the UK, and my daughter was born. And when we came to the UK, I thought, right, okay, I'm going to go back into the lab. So I had connections. I live in near Sheffield, and through my work I done in Belgium, I had connections with a lab in Sheffield University. So I thought, I could just bring them up.
At that point, did you already know the English language?
Well, the good thing is about Belgium, we learn English. Well, we learn 4 languages in school. Well, we have our Flemish. We have to learn French. Well, it was in my day. I think it's still the same. So when you're 10 years old, you start learning French. Then when you're 13 years old, you continue. So you have your own language, and you continue with the French and the English. And then when you're 14, you start doing your own language and the French and the English and German. And that goes through your entire school career. So that's until you're 18. So most Belgians speak at least 3 languages. So I was used to speaking about. The thing is as well, we get all our programs, all our television programs, nothing's dubbed. So we get everything in its original language. Okay. So we were, you constantly watch English programs, music. So if you would go to Belgium, any person you speak to, a bit like in Holland, I suppose, and Germany and Sweden, any person you speak to will answer you in very, very clear English, even little children.
I think it's just the UK where we just learn one language. Everywhere else in the world seems to learn multiple language and is able to speak in English. And it's a given when we travel from the UK that we expect others to be able to speak in English to us.
But the problem is as well, you see, because my husband, who's Welsh, so we lived in Belgium for quite a few years, and he did go and do a course. He wanted to learn language. But then every time he tried speaking in Flemish, people would say, you speak English, and they would start speaking to him in English. So it was like, right, okay, what's the point?
It's such a universal language that if you know English, you're not expected to learn anything else. But then when you started school, were you considered as English as a second language speaker?
Yes.
Even though it was just sign?
Oh, well, no. So
for you guys, it was Belgium.
The equivalent. No. In those days, nothing was known about any of it.
Okay.
You just got on with it. Now, you would be considered that, and you would get support, and they would keep a very close eye on what you're doing and your writing and your grammar and everything. I was very lucky in the sense that I absorbed things quite easily, but not everybody can do that. And I know coders who have got, who aren't very good at their reading and their writing because they haven't had that support. But now that it would be completely different. There's much more awareness now.
So if a kid was growing up in a household that didn't speak a vocal language, they would be considered as a second speaker in English if they were growing up. That's really interesting. That's really, because it's completely different.
School really ought to pay attention to that and put support in place for that child. If they don't, they're not addressing that child's needs.
So at school you learned all these languages, which I guess put you in a perfect position for you to be able to travel. When you were in Malaysia, did you pick up the language there?
I spoke a little bit sedikit. Bahasa Malaya sedikit. So I spoke a little bit of Malay. Loved it. Was very involved in the local community. Learned to dive. Became a dive master. Taught diving. Set up a baby and toddler group because my son was born there. So even though I wasn't working, I was still really busy. But that that fantastic life came to an end after 4 years. So back in the UK we were. And then I thought, right, so let's go. I thought I'll ring the lab in Sheffield. But then I thought, when I was in the lab, when I was a scientist, I get quite obsessive about what I do. And I was in the lab all the time. I was there morning, night, weekend, Easter, Christmas. I was always there. I lived nearby, I couldn't leave my cells for a day. And I thought, I can't do that with the family. So then I worked at B&Q for a bit. because I thought, why not? And it sort of gave me a really good chance to. I did that for a year because I wanted living in South Yorkshire for me was something completely new. So I thought, I'll go and work in B&Q. I didn't talk about my qualifications or anything, and I worked on the till in B&Q, and I loved it. But then after a year, it was
you easily get the job there, because I think if you're overqualified, it's really difficult to even get the basic jobs these days.
I just didn't say.
Oh, you didn't say?
Don't tell anybody. So that was 2005. So it's quite a long time ago now. And then I thought, right, okay, as much as I enjoy this, I do want to use the skills I've got a little bit. And I thought, okay, what about teaching? And, I'll be honest, it was like, well, I had 2 small children, teaching fits around the children, but I thought, I'm Belgian. The UK system is completely different. So I went and worked in a school for a year as a cover teacher.
Yeah.
Oh my word. Were
you at primary or secondary?
Secondary maths.
Oh.
I just couldn't believe it. So the first few weeks I was like.
So how does it differ from your experience? Because you grew up in Belgium, you went through the education system there. I've grown up in the UK, I've gone through the education system here. What would you say are the differential factors that you picked up on in that year?
There's a massive difference in behaviour. Massive.
Yeah. In what way?
I've got to be careful what I say, but I also worked in a local school, so it's not, it's just a box standard comprehensive. I worked in a lot of schools here, and there was no respect. There's absolutely no respect for the teacher. You have to earn it. You have to work very, very hard at earning it.
So in Belgium, is the respect a given thing? You respect the teacher.
Yeah.
No, well, I think it's like that in most other areas of the world.
Yeah.
It's just the UK.
Yeah. No, I know. So that was a massive shock to me. You wouldn't dream of doing the thing that the kids were doing here. I was telling my Belgian friends, and they were like, "God, that's something from the telly." Because of course, all they see, when they listen to watching English programs, it's a lot about the grammar school and the Eton and all that. So they thought that wasn't something like that. I was no way. But the big difference is that once you get the kids. Once they suss you out and they see that, okay, she means well, she's actually here to teach me, and she will go above and beyond to help me, then you have to get a fantastic relationship. Professional, obviously, you get a fantastic professional relationship with those children, and you would never get that in Belgium. So there's, in Belgium...
is there a distance between...
Yes. In Belgium, you're a teacher. You go, you teach, you leave.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is another massive difference is in Belgium, you haven't got the accountability we've got. Exams are set by the teacher. The teacher is trusted. So the teacher is trusted to teach the syllabus and set exams. If a child does well, the child can decide when they're 18 to go to university or not.
So is then the curriculum and the syllabus different from school to school because the teacher decides what's relevant? No,
it's just so you've got... I suppose it differs slightly.
Yeah, but
not a lot.
So basically the overview is the same, and it's just a style of teaching.
But you've got the freedom to do with that what you want to do, as long as at the end of the year or the end of the 6 years, because in Belgium secondary school is 6 years. As long as at the end of the 6 years you've taught the syllabus, or because obviously by law it's still like with us, it's still decided what the child needs to learn, and then child then goes on to university or not. But the difference in Belgium as well, you haven't got the private and the comprehensive system like what you have here. What you've got is you've still got the tiered system, so it's almost like a grammar school system and vocational. Okay, so you get to decide at a certain age whether you're going to go into the vocational route or whether you want to go academic route. And what age is that? What age do they decide? 12. Okay, so it's very... it used to be like that in the UK about 100, I don't know, I'm guessing or whatever it was. I don't know. It seems like a while ago. It probably wasn't that long ago, to be fair. No. It's probably when my husband was in school, which isn't long ago at all, But so every child can do what you're not, there's pros and cons about it, but we've got a big problem here in the UK with children who are being pushed into the comprehensive route, who have got to do their GCSEs, maths, English, science and all them. They've got to have 5 GCSEs to get the buckets for the you know, the what is it, progress rate and all that. Whereas in Belgium, you don't get that. Well, thirdly, because schools aren't graded on academic achievement.
Yeah, on league tables, yeah.
That's it, yeah. There's nothing like that. When I tell my friends in Belgium, they're like, okay, so if the child... I agree with accountability. I do agree that teachers have to be held accountable, but...
Yeah, I agree with you that if you take it too far, though, the focus shifts. And it's not then about the learning, it's about just getting the marks and the grades to get... Exactly.
And then it becomes that, it then puts a huge amount of... I mean, I don't want to have a moan, but it puts a huge amount on us as teachers. Like, if you've done everything you can to support that child and the child still says no, then, you know, you still get called to do the head's office and have to explain why that child didn't achieve 4 levels of progress. So again, you would never get that in Belgium. So... And
the UK education system is set up in a way where it caters for a specific type of child, and if your learning style or your kind of outlook changes from that, you can't get on with it. It's so difficult to... I don't know how do they start school at the same age in Belgium?
Yes, but they don't start learning official reading, literacy, numeracy until they're 7.
Yeah, which is how it is in most other places in the world. Yeah. And yet we still, even though we start earlier, we still have issues where there's kids leaving in year 6 and they can't read and write.
Yeah.
And I've worked with loads of them.
Yeah, that would be very rare in Belgium. And again, you agree with that or you don't agree with that. But in Belgium, if you don't reach a certain standard at the end of the school year, you have to redo that school year.
Which I think is a good way of making
sure
if you don't,
yeah. So normally by the end of year 1, year 2, that 7 or 8 children are expected to be able to read. If you can't, then clearly you need all that support again. And you
go on.
Yeah. Plus, also, it's a really good incentive for children to work to learn and to practice their reading, because I want to go out with my friends.
Because unfortunately, I've worked with kids that are on like the later years in their school life, 15, 16, 17, and yet they still don't have the basics in place which were learnt at primary school, and they were allowed to just filter through the system and coast through it, and the support wasn't provided. They were seen as a troubled kid, and they just go through the system, and you're thinking, they've been in school for how many years of their life?
Exactly.
And they can't do the basics, and
it's like when you get children in year 7 and they're counting on M1s, and you think, what have you been doing all that time? You know, and you're adding 2 numbers and you're counting on M1s. That's criminal.
Yeah.
But yeah, those children, because they can count on M1s, they can get some marks on their SATs. You know, they won't get 100, what it is now, or the old level 4, but they'll get enough, and then they get shifted over to secondary, and you deal with it then. It's horrendous, yeah.
And you probably do this with maths as well, that it's not about getting the right answer, because that could be a fluke. It's about the method and the thinking that goes behind it. So I'm really careful, and I watch how a kid approaches it. I ask them, how have you done that? What's your thinking behind that? Because that tells me more about their understanding than just a mark on a paper.
Exactly.
Exams.
And that's where we now, being tutors, we're in a very, very privileged position, because we can do that now. And that is why I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing now, because I feel I can give the child what it needs, and I can go off piste and support there and then if needs must, and you can't do that when you've got 30 children and 7 of them who are behaving badly, and you've got to deal with them. So it's really sad, but we're very lucky that we can do the job we do.
I think parents are getting a bit of more respect for teachers now, having to homeschool their kids at home.
Yes.
They're realizing how difficult it actually is. Because they've only got 2 or 3, and then they're thinking, oh my, the school system, the kids there's 30 kids in a class. Yeah,
you'll be getting a lot more end of year presents, I think. Lots of bottles of wine.
So you did your cover supervised for a year, and then what happened after that?
Then I was in school, so I was covering for science and for English, for science and for maths, and again, and that's something else that a little bit worry to expose, but you also know in lots of schools, when you're a cover teacher, you shouldn't have more than 3, the children shouldn't have more than 3 consecutive days being taught by a cover teacher.
Really? I didn't know that, because I've never worked as a cover teacher.
Yeah.
But surely they need consistency.
But after then, that you should bring in a supply teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's another thing as well. When cover teachers became, when schools started to hire cover teachers, then the whole supply teaching profession, is on its knees, because they will only get the very long-term ones if the cover teachers can't teach the syllabus or whatever, but you won't have your one-off supply, because that always gets covered by the cover teacher. But so I was, that was the job I was supposed to be doing, and I was doing it, and I was doing science and I was doing maths, and I loved it. But I was teaching the timetable of a science teacher and the partial timetable of a maths teacher, with no education, no teaching,
no qualifications.
No. So I remember I once had my wrist slapped, seriously, because, well, my first week, so I'm in school, year 7, science, 30 odd kids, felt like 300. I didn't know what I was doing. So I brought in a lightsaber to get their attention. Yeah, so that worked. So that was the first lesson, and then the next lesson, the same thing happened again. And I said, like, okay, we can do this 3 ways. Remember, I had no training at all. This was my, first or second week in this school. I said, we can do this the easy way, we can do this the hard way, or we can do this my way. And they said, oh, miss, what's your way? I said, well, I've got an AK-47 in the back of my car.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Ha ha ha!
You know what the equivalent of that is if I were to say that, right?
I know!
What have I got in my bag?
I know! I know, it's really, but okay, this was 15 years ago. It still wasn't, advisable to say that at the time, but I thought, obviously it was a joke.
Yeah.
Well, we had parents ringing in. So, and that's when I thought, well, this is ridiculous. You've put me in front of this class of children, every day, day in, day out.
You know what? You say that, but I say to my kids, and it's different because I'm not in a schooling system now. When we do dissection days, I have to be pretty clear on how they behave, because I've got really young kids, 5, 6, 7-year-olds with knives and all the rest of it. But when they see the organ, they go, Miss, whose organ is this? And I say, kids that have annoyed me. And you should see their nervous laugh. They pause for a second, they look at me, and then it sinks in, and they're like, and I'm just laughing.
I'm very good, look, I do what you say.
But I think they know that I'm joking. I hope so, but
yeah.
I'm sure I've given a couple of them a bit of nightmares, but they'll behave then. They're not going to but I want them to behave.
Oh, with that kind of friends,
one wrong move, they could slice their finger off.
Exactly.
So it is really dangerous. So I need to get them focused.
Yeah.
But I say that. I don't think I would say that in a class environment, because I'd probably get pulled off by my head. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I didn't. It's like I say, I had no training. I had no idea. I didn't have a clue about the British system. I was in shock. It was like, what do I do? But anyway, so that was sort of the initial. And then when it got to Christmas, I was crying. I thought, I can't cope with this.
They're particularly bad with cover teachers as well, though.
Yeah.
When
it's
you're
the
a cover
hardest
teacher,
job in the world.
It is.
I think it really is. Yeah.
Cover and supply have it really bad.
Yeah. But then I got through that, and then the kids got to know me, and I got to know the kids. And I have to say, January, February, March, I then started building relationships. And then I thought, yeah, you know what? I really like this. Plus, I actually had my own classes, because the maths teacher at the time was on long-term absence. So what did they do? They gave me the classes.
So did you become a supply teacher then?
No, I was still a cover teacher.
I thought you said you couldn't be there for more than 3 consecutive.
I know.
Okay, so it's interesting that they probably need them as well, because a lot of class teachers will go off because they can't deal with the class.
Yeah, but it's they should have really got a supply teacher. But anyway, so at the end of that year, towards the end of the year, I looked around and I thought, hang on a minute, I am doing what your lot are doing, but I'm getting paid less than half of what you're getting. Plus, I've got no background, no educational background in pedagogy and all that. And I thought, I'm going to do my PGC.
Yeah.
So off I went, did my PGCE. So I did that 3 years. Did one in science, because I have a science degree. Yeah. Then at the end of my PGCE, I then got a call from the school where I used to work saying, oh, we've got a science job. Can you apply for it? Yeah, so I applied for that science job. But then when I'd applied for the job, I got another phone call saying, we've got a maths job as well. We'd like you to apply for the maths job.
Okay. In the same school?
Same school. So they then moved this. Honestly, there's so much coming out in this podcast. I'm going to get shot. So they moved the interview for the maths teacher to before the science teacher. So they interviewed me and I got the job. So I said, okay, this is all good and well, but if I'm going to be a maths teacher, I want a little bit of, like CPD. Yeah, that's fine. Well, I was teaching science, I was teaching maths, I was teaching construction.
Wow.
Yeah. How does the fridge work? How do you cement 2 bricks together? Okay. So after a year, I was like, you know what? I was supposed to teach maths. Yeah, this is not what I do. So I then got a job at a different school where they paid me full time 5 days, but 1 day a week they would allow me to go out to do what's called an SKE course. So it's a subject knowledge enhancement course.
Yeah.
So I then did my PGC in maths while I was working as a maths teacher. So, and that's really when I then, I really felt this is what I want to do.
So you did a PGC in science initially, but then you did the subject enhancement in maths later.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a similar sort of route where I was working unqualified for 2 years.
Right.
I did 2 years unqualified in a college. It was in a private college, and to work in a private college as a teacher, you don't need to have teaching qualifications. All they were looking for was for a degree. So my degree was in physics and maths, and I think initially I was down as physics teacher, but then I taught maths as well, and they gave me a bit of business studies to do, and they wanted me to do I was like, I can't do essay writing, let alone teach someone else and mark another person's essay work. I only did that for 1 term, and I was like, that's it, I'm done with this. But I had to do a bit of everything, and I was doing A-level physics, I was doing A-level further maths, and it was a lot of work, because you're given the textbook, you're given the spec, and you're just said, go and teach. I had a lot of fun though. We did YouTube videos, we did paint in physics, we made a pendulum with paint, with a hole at the bottom.
It's brilliant. Yes, I love that, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. I want to do this forever. So I'd go out and did my PGCE, but I did it based in a school. So mine was called school-based training.
Yeah. Skids, was it Skids then?
Something like that, yeah. I was teaching in a school and I was getting my qualification. So I was working in a state school. And then when I did that, I realized what I'd been doing previously and the freedom I had previously when I was unqualified. I had so much more freedom.
Yeah.
They basically said, here's a spec.
Yeah.
As long as they get the grades, we're happy.
Yeah.
But once you're actually a teacher, qualified teacher in a school environment, they want you to follow the way that they teach.
Yeah.
And it becomes completely different.
Yeah.
And then you're restricted, and you've suddenly got a class of 30. Previously, I only had a class of 8 to 10 kids.
Yeah.
It was private. They were paying between 15 and 30K to be there, a lot of money. I felt like I had to work harder because of the amount of money
to give them their money's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't being paid a portion of that.
I know.
It's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, when I became a qualified teacher, it was completely different. So I completely understand from where you're coming from. But even as a cover supervisor, it would have been an eye-opener for you.
It was, yeah. But it was good because it did help me to, it's never been as bad as when I was a cover teacher. Like when you're in your NQT year and you still think, oh my word, this is hard. It was never as bad as when I was a cover teacher. And I knew with time things would get better as well. But then I really got involved in maths. And through my PGCE, I actually then did a master's as well in maths education. And it taught me so much. It really opened, of how maths is being learned, because you're a secondary maths teacher, but then you get a child there who can't add 2 numbers together. What do you do? Yeah. So I became really interested in that aspect of it as well. And then, I just worked through the ranks. I became head of Key Stage 3. I became second in maths. I then went to a different school where I was head of maths. I did that for 2.5 years. And after 2.5 years, I was working myself into the ground. And I thought, this is not what I want to do, because as head of maths, I wanted to be a head of maths to inspire people.
But it's more admin though, isn't it?
Exactly.
The higher up you get in the teaching profession, the less teaching you
Exactly. So it's admin, it's checking up on your staff, it's observations, it's filling in loads and loads of spreadsheets. And I thought, I don't want to do this anymore, because the time when I was head of maths was a time where I didn't engage in and improving my own practice.
Yeah.
I wasn't writing any more lessons, I wasn't reading anymore, I was, maths related. And after 2.5 years, I thought, this is not, yes, it's nice, because I'm head of maths, but I thought, this is not what I want to do. I want to teach. So I then went to a different school and I became a consultant there. And that was really interesting because I then got pulled in to do a lot of year 11 intervention. And you see, again, that the children, like you said, they get to year 11 and there's so many things they can't do. But what was really interesting, I then also got sent to the primary schools to work with the year 6s. And there it was so blatantly obvious to me that where it goes wrong is at the end of year 2.
Yeah.
At the end of year 2. So I did a lot of work then with lower down the school, you know, helping the teachers to learn how to teach, because, you know, primary teachers, they're doing an amazing job, but they don't get taught how to teach maths. They get what, 3 6 hours and this is how you teach maths. How are they supposed to know that? So they just use the skills that they've got themselves. Yeah. But again,
I think as a specialist you realize that the flaws in the education system lower down, which then make your life harder at secondary level. Because I come from because as a science teacher, I've seen where the errors that they make lower down, because when they get to secondary school, what do we tell them? We tell them, forget everything you've learned. We're going to start again. When they get to year 9 and they start GCSEs, we say, forget what you've learned, because we're going to start again. So what I do now is I go, right, we're not going to focus on the curriculum. I can do that now because I'm not teaching in a school. We're just going to look at the GCSE syllabus and make sure that we can understand the basics at that primary level and work our way up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think maths is more logical. So with maths, you can do that anyway. You can start from a low level and work your way up. What I find really fascinating is students I work with one-to-one at GCSE and higher level, I am teaching them the same concepts that I'm teaching primary age kids. And I'm thinking, had they learnt it properly at primary level, we wouldn't have this issue right now. Exactly. And I say this to my primary age, I'm like, you're learning GCSE content because I'm teaching this to my GCSE kids.
And all those children, all those year 11s would have smashed the higher paper.
Yeah, had they,
you know, and would have had a completely different career possibly, because they would enjoy maths. They wouldn't see it as a massive fear factor and have a panic attack every time somebody mentions the word maths. I was doing a quiz last Sunday with a group of friends of mine, and I was doing half of it, and they were maths related questions. You should have seen their faces, panic stricken. Yeah, how wrong is that?
But to be fair, I'm not good at mental maths myself. So I interviewed a gymnast a couple of weeks ago, and he picked the maths questions for the quiz at the end. And those are actually maths questions, like worded maths questions. And I was there trying to figure it out. And he goes, this is the answer. I was like, how did you figure that out? I've barely read the question.
Yeah.
I'm a sort of pen and paper type of person where I have to really draw stuff.
Yeah.
He was doing it in his head. And I'm like, you're really good at maths. You're in the wrong profession.
Yeah. But the questions I was asking wasn't even working anything out. It was you know, things like what you call when there's 10 disciplines in the sports, you know, like a decathlon and stuff like that. So it was maths, but it wasn't maths.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, once we'd gone through the quiz, people were like, oh yeah, that was all right. But the initial fear on their faces. So, but anyway, that's a whole different.
Maths is seen as something that is like out of our comprehension. It's just it's like a different language in itself.
Exactly. Because
you like it or you don't.
Because I put a post on, I've got my tutoring Facebook site, and I actually put a post on there that what I want to do after lockdown is I want to do parents and children's workshops for parents, really, more than for the children, where we do maths concepts, but not as you know it. You know, we do lots of, you know, like Fibonacci, golden ratio, tessellations, you know, the nice bits of maths, and then move into, you know, the more algebra and all that, but just to get rid of that fear factor. Because I said, this is ridiculous. I said on there, you know, you all very easily say, oh, I can't do maths, but that's all right. Or you say to your children, I can't do maths, but that's all right. Would you say, oh, I can't read? That's
all right.
Exactly.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's it goes back to mindset and growth mindset, and that kind of, we switch off something in our head. We say, oh, we're not good at this, so we're not even going to try because it's out of our reach. But you're not good at it yet, and there's always room for improvement. And I think there's a concept where adults think they've learned everything that they have to learn, and they don't need to learn anything else. I think that's wrong. And I think as teachers, we need to kind of portray the fact that we're still learning. And it's okay.
Absolutely.
Life is a learning thing, and you're constantly learning. And like you've said, you went and you did your PGC in science, you did your PGC in maths, and now you're doing something different. And a master's, and you're doing something completely different now, where you're combining science with maths, So you've had to learn to be able
because that was interesting as well. Because when we go back to my story of growing up, and I was never going to be a teacher, definitely not for deaf people.
Yeah.
So when I was doing my consultancy work, I only worked 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And I'd seen this job came up, and it was for an English teacher in the deaf school. So completely unrelated, but it sort of started putting some seeds in my head. So I emailed the school and I said, look, I know you're looking for an English teacher, but I'd be quite interested from a personal point of view to come and have a look around, because I was brought up in a deaf family and I know the deaf system in Belgium, blah, 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 blah. But I'd like to come and see what it's like in the UK. So straight away I got an email back, yes, please, come. So, I'm driving over there. A couple of weeks later, I'm driving over there. And what was really interesting, the day I drove over there, their maths specialist had handed in a notice.
Oh, wow. Talk about timing.
I know. So I'm walking around there. And that none of us knew that when, with the initial contact. So I'm walking around and I'm thinking, I love this. I absolutely love this. It really brought everything back. And the interesting was as well, even though I didn't speak the language, I didn't speak British Sign Language, because my sign language is a completely different language. Yeah. So there was all this BSL going on, which I sort of could pick some bits and pieces up, but I couldn't communicate fluently with the kids, but I could just make it up as I went along. And I thought, you've got that affinity. You've got that. I know deaf. I know, even, because I didn't speak BSL at the time, I learned it. I got up to my level 2 in about 2 months, because deaf. You've got the facial expressions. Facial expressions are very, very, very important, more so than what you say with your hands. But because of my background, I just pick it up really, really quickly. So once I then started learning BSL, the kids, well, I'm going too fast now. So I walked around the school and I got offered a job. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? So I thought, right, yeah, let's do it. Let's just give it a go. So I did that for nearly 2 years. And I had to learn BSL, obviously. And I also had to learn it's not just putting up your normal lessons that you would teach with your hearing kids and just signing them. There is a lot more to it, a lot more, and it goes a lot slower. Because one of the things you've got to remember is that our deaf kids, our children will hear the word parallel, in conversation, or perpendicular, or a hexagon. Deaf children obviously never hear those kinds of words. So they are learning not only maths, they are also learning a foreign language. They are learning maths in a language they never speak. So a much, much bigger focus, which I learned very quickly, is on the vocab. And I used to make little dictionaries for them with the pictures, and sometimes explaining the sign what it was, and the word what it was. But it's also things like writing numbers, because they don't hear how you say the numbers. It's really difficult for them to learn to do all that. And unfortunately at GCSE, you get marked on stuff like that. You've got to be able to write, your 4 or 5 digit numbers and things. So, but then when I was there, as much as I loved it, what I felt is that there's a lot of deaf children who don't get a chance to actually go to a deaf school.
Yeah.
So a lot of the deaf children, if they are I know people cringe a little bit, but in the deaf community we call them normal deaf children. So these are just children with the hearing impairments. They haven't got any additional needs. So these children have got the ability, to learn like any hearing child. But they're not, because those children are most of the time people in mainstream. Because of the language deficit, they end up in the bottom sets.
They're deemed as SEN, aren't they? And everyone gets packed together. If you're high functioning, or if you're on the autistic spectrum, but you're fine intellectually, you're able to kind of be up to scratch. You're all clubbed together.
Yeah, because they are the small groups. Yeah, and they say, well, we can't put a deaf child in a group of 30. Well, I can't see one out. But anyway, so these children then get put in with the special needs kids. They get what's called the CSW, communication support worker with them, who most of the time can sign, not always up to a high level, but most of the time can sign. But what the child then gets is second hand. Teacher speaks, CSW translates, explains to the child. What's also happening is because the CSW really wants the child to do well, they will often sort of help the child in giving the answer, because they can see,
where,
look, they're doing very well. No, they're not.
This is where I am not a big fan of TAs. So I've worked with a number of kids who've got TAs in the school system, and I've been working with them out of school. And what I find is when they come to our sessions, they just don't engage. They wait for us to be told what to do. Like every single thing, they're waiting for us to be told what to do. And I get the impression that the TA in the class is actually telling them what to write.
Yes, they are.
Because the parents will say, but the school teacher's saying they're doing fab. And I'm like, but your child is not engaging. They're not able to do things on their own.
And you can't blame the TAs, because I mean, a lot of the time these are mums, you know, who got a little job in school and who are there because they want the child to do well. They haven't been taught how to teach. Exactly. They just do what they think is right. So I completely agree with what you're saying, but I also want to be careful that we're not TA bashing here, because it's not their fault. But I have also found, especially them being in a special needs school, where some of these children have a one-to-one, they become completely dependent on their one-to-one. And I much rather not have them and work with the children myself in smaller groups and teach them. But anyway, so the hearing impaired children in mainstream, so like I said, the problem is they will end up in bottom sets. They will end up in big groups. They get second-hand.
And I guess if the TA isn't a specialist in a subject that's being taught, they don't know how to sign certain words. They don't know how to explain certain concepts. You're getting more of a, there's more of a chance that certain concepts are going to get misunderstood.
Exactly. And then some of these children who are in mainstream schools have got what is called a unit. So within the school there is a deaf unit, and they get visits from the teacher of the deaf, which is that's a teacher. You've got to have at least 2 years of experience of teaching, and they then have done a postgraduate, and it's a mandatory qualification of teachers of the deaf, because I've started that as well, but I stopped, but that's for different reasons. And I was talking to, when I was on my course, I was talking to a lot of teachers of the deaf there, and there is a very, very, very small minority. I think there was one other person who was a maths specialist, one other person. So a lot of the TODs, and my TOD friends will tell me that as well, they go into schools and they will focus on the language, they will focus on English, they will focus on helping the child to read. They don't really know how to help with the maths. So all that for me, is causing an avalanche of reasons for hearing impaired children not to get their maths qualifications. Now, I'm in the Doncaster and District Deaf Society. We've got 600 members. If there's 2 or 3 who've got their maths qualifications, it'll be a lot. And it's just not right. So it's just not right. And that's why I decided, okay, I'm going to do something about it. What can I do? So I packed in my job and I said, I'm going to set up maths in Bsl. There we go. But
it's such a unique niche. Like when you mentioned it to me, I was like, I've never heard of anything like this. But then the more I kind of thought about it, I was like, it makes so much sense though.
It does, doesn't it?
Have a specialist, because you're essentially teaching in a different language.
Yes.
And to be able to reach a child in that area, you need to be a specialist in the subject and in the language to be able to do it effectively.
Exactly. And because there are some maths teachers who teach in deaf schools, but a lot of them will need an interpreter with them as well. So you'll be teaching.
So I went to, so one of my schools that I visited when I was training was a deaf school. And it was fascinating because a lot of these kids in the community that in the area that the school was based in, the community saw the deaf kids as an outcast. They were seen as outcasts. They were seen as they don't have potential to do much with their life. So even their parents weren't learning the language because they thought there's no hope for this child.
Plus, a lot of the parents want their children to be normal, so they speak to them thinking, I want to normalize my child.
And it just doesn't work. So the kids were coming into a school environment and they were so blessed. So they felt so blessed to be able to speak to their teachers in sign and to have that communication. And I felt so teary just hearing that. And I wanted to go and teach there. And I was like, is that possible? And they were like, yeah, it is if we have an interpreter. And we'd be teaching you some basic on the side, but you'd have an interpreter in there. But they didn't have any vacancies at the time, but they was like, that's how we deal with having specialists in. But that causes so many issues because unless interpreter knows a specialist language, how do you teach it? How do you teach science?
Exactly.
Definitely.
Because imagine you're saying something, the interpreter says something, the child signs something back to the interpreter, then the interpreter voices it back to me.
It's like tiny whispers.
Yeah, exactly. When I started at the deaf school, you know, I mean, the TAs there are amazing. You know, their signing is absolutely amazing. But while I was there, but that's because I've got the advantage of being able to learn it really quickly. The kids were teaching me, and I was just picking it up. And it got to the point where I said to the TA, and they knew, you know, I said, you go and sit and watch me sign, and if I'm doing something wrong, tell me, which they would, you know, because it's the only way you will learn. But once I did that, oh my world, you know, it's just opens you on the communication. You see the misconceptions. You know, you have this question and answer what you have in a normal maths classroom, and you can just jump in, and it's amazing. And you know, in my opinion, every child should be able to have that, but of course they haven't, because I only know of one of me.
Yeah.
To be honest,
it's such a big barrier to them to not be able to communicate directly, and it's such a shame that there's not many other people doing that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So the work that you're doing at the moment, you're a tutor for deaf kids, specialists in maths. So do you take them from basic level all the way up to GCSE?
Well, you know, I'll be very honest with you. It's getting it out there. So I'm making videos where I do at the moment.
It's brand new for you, isn't it? You've only just started tutoring. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I've been tutoring for, you know, 15 years, but just, you know, like parents of children who knew me and said, oh, can you tutor? So I've been tutoring a long time. But tutoring deaf children is, because there are so few and far between, and they're all over the country. They don't live in my area. I thought, right, I'm going to have to look at this differently. So I've started making some videos just to get people's attention. And I think my first video, within 2 days, it had 2,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
really
I had messages from parents of deaf children saying, oh my word, this is amazing. Have you got any more? Yeah. So then I started making some more. Of course, then we had the whole lockdown. So then I started making some more. So the ones I've made now are basic maths. You know, I would say, you know, it's like, I've made one for a mum who messaged me. She said, oh, because I put them on the square numbers. Why are square numbers? And I got a message from my mum saying, oh, it's fantastic, but my daughter is only 8. I said, so I emailed, I said, well, what's she working on now? And she told me. So I made a video for her, and mum was just completely over the moon. But what I really want to happen is that word gets spread, and that I would get, I mean, now with the whole lockdown, we've all really mastered how to do online teaching now. Yeah. And when at first I thought I'll never be able to, you know, to get to reach the deaf children, but now I know we can teach online. Everyone's exactly online. It's not a problem. So I can teach deaf children from all over the country. But the issue now is, of course, I need to let people know that I am here, and that will take time. The other thing I want to do as well is, of course, I want to continue making my videos, because I want to continue offering those for free, because, you know, anything I can help, you know, to help deaf people do maths, I'll still do that. So the videos I'm making, that's just something that I want to do because I can, you know, and I feel, okay, I can help people. Hopefully from that, I will then get private students that I will be teaching maths in British Sign Language, so those children can get their GCSEs. Because if they get their GCSEs, you know, the world is a different place for them. They can access so much more. How can people access your channel? Is it a YouTube channel? It is a YouTube channel, yeah. If they look for Mrs. Walters Maths, but I'll send you all that information. Yeah. And I'll put everything in the description, guys, so you've got access to the links. Yeah. Or if they just look at my Facebook site, or everything's on my Facebook, on my business webpage as well. Brilliant. So yeah, it's fairly straightforward to find. So those families that are in lockdown at the moment, and they do have deaf kids in the family, what are your top tips in how you can engage with them in the home? So not just in maths, but across the spectrum in all of the subjects. How could they be engaging with their kids, especially if they were relying on a school system to have that communication with their kids, and they're not fluent in sign? Yeah. How could they be engaging with their children? I think the main thing is to get on top of the vocab first, even if you can't sign. But if you point at certain words, and then you might make your own little dictionary, like the dictionaries I make for maths. You might make a dictionary with something that the child is working on, or some of the work that the school has sent home for the child to do, or something the child's interested in.
How would you make a dictionary? Would you have a word and a picture to go with it? How would you make a dictionary?
I would have a picture, or I would draw it. So you'd have the word, you'd have the picture, you would draw it. Or you wouldn't have like a proper list, like here is the words, here is the picture, because you can do that. That's if people want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But what I had the words and the picture. Also, when you go online, there is a lot of BSL info out there where you can actually copy and paste the signs, the actual sign symbol, and stick that on there as well. Yeah,
that's difficult to capture though, because of the movement.
Exactly. Or you can actually go online, and there's a lot of BSL sites actually show you how to do the sign as well. So that might be an interesting thing for parents to do with their children, even though even if they can't sign, they might say, okay, let's learn. What are you learning today? Okay, it's geography.
That might be an interesting thing for you to do on YouTube as well, to create an almost video dictionary.
Yeah.
You go, right, let's have a look at all the words that come up in number in maths. And you go through what an addition is, a subtraction, multiplication.
That's a really good idea.
And let's have a look at fractions, because with fractions you've got improper, mixed. You could essentially create dictionaries for families to be able to kind of click, and you have all the words inside.
That's a very good idea, actually. Yeah. Right, that's another one on my whiteboard.
But then parents at home can do that with their kids. Once they've seen your videos, they can create their own video dictionary with their kids, where they're learning, and it'd be a lot of fun to do. So that's a good tip. So that's first one. What are your other two tips?
When you're reading with your child, your child has not got a strong knowledge of the English language structure. So shorten it.
Okay.
Not the bear was sat in the field. No, bear, field. You see? Pick out the very important words to communicate with your child.
Okay.
Don't use complicated words. Change the complicated words into simple words that the child will know. Yes, later on, you can extend their vocab, but the first thing is really, does the child understand what is written there? Yeah.
So in sign language, do you actually have all the words for is, the, or do you just skip them out completely?
It's completely different. It's a completely different grammar.
So give us an example.
What is your name? So the sign is name you what. What is your name? Name you what. So
if you've got someone that's partially deaf, and you're vocalizing it as well, would you use the same words as the complete interpretation, or would you?
It all depends on what the person can do, because there's also something which is called SSE, which is Sign Supported English.
Yeah.
And then you do sign every word. And that is often used in an educational setting where teachers have got to teach grammar, and where they've got to teach the past tense.
Yeah.
Like walk and walked, but you can't sign walk and walked, but you can say walk, and then you can say ed. So you would, that is your sign supported English, where you say every word.
If you're teaching them English, they will have to learn that to be able to write it.
Yeah.
But for everyday conversation, they can skip that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then when you're an English teacher and you want to tell a story, then you want to do that in BSL, because you want them to understand everything about the story. You don't want them to look at every word separately.
Yeah. You want them
to follow the flow of the story. Yeah. So it's really complicated. Teaching deaf children is not just writing it down.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing as well. Now with all the COVID announcements we have, the deaf community is up in arms, because when Boris is doing an announcement, there is never an interpreter. Have a look next time on the news. Yeah. When you see the news from Scotland, when you see the news from Ireland, there will always be a sign language interpreter, There is never, when we get the news from Downing Street or from number 10, there is never a sign language interpreter.
Are they just expecting someone to just put the subtitles on and read?
Exactly, yeah. But the problem is that for deaf people, subtitles is all written in English with English grammar, you know, and a lot of them just, what the sign is just like, goes over my head. It was like, yeah. So there are people that are interpreters, sign language interpreters, who are now doing posts on Facebook, interpreting and explaining everything that's been said in those announcements. So there is so much work, you know, to still be done for awareness.
Like, you've got a new word, like COVID-19.
Yeah.
Does that have its own sign then?
Well, the interesting thing is that the deaf community actually comes up. So what they call it, when they sign, so the deaf community, this is the deaf community, and they sort of merge. So they talk, and then they merge, and they come up with a sign. And they come, you know, for lockdown, for COVID-19, you know, for coronavirus. So these are new signs that are being developed. And
so,
then
so the coronavirus one, is that the visual of the white virus?
Yeah, so it's the corona, so the C, and then the virus, which is like a ball, but it's also spreading. So it's very visual.
Spiky ball.
Yeah, spiky ball spreading.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So would you, like, I've heard, I don't know the Chinese language, but I've heard that the Chinese use images for their kind of characters and symbols, and each character references what the word actually means. Like, I think for walking, it like, you can see a person walking. I'm making that up. I don't know exactly if the walking is like that. So is it similar with sign? When new words emerge, it's related to what the physical image looks
Not
like?
all the time. No, that's called iconicity, I think. Yeah, when it actually looks like what you would let me give an example. Like you have a sheet, which is a sheet or a sheet, but then you have paper. Where's that come from? Do you know what I mean? So it's not always.
So I was thinking rock, paper, scissors. That would have made more sense.
Yeah.
This is rock.
Yeah, exactly. But what a lot of people think is sign language is actually gestures.
Yeah.
Like you would say, that is not sign language. That is classed as a gesture, or like, we all know what that means, but that is not sign language.
Yeah.
You would say, this means I don't know, but in sign you would say it.
That's interesting.
So
how does that differ between the Belgian sign language and British? So
it's so different. It's so different.
I don't know in British. What is it in Belgium? It's similar. So
it is similar. Some
you
things
can tell
similar.
from language to language that just means I don't have.
Some things are similar. Some things are completely different. Some things are so different, and I cannot sign that on here because it's very rude. But I didn't know I was being rude. I was saying to my children, my year 11s, that I was going out. So in BSL, you say I'm going is I'm going. See, again, that's not straightforward, isn't it? Going. Why does it mean? Yeah.
That means finished. I finished.
Yeah, or finish is finish.
Oh, that's
finished. Yeah, or finally. Finish, finally. But I was signing in my, it was when I was doing a hybrid of my Flemish sign language and the BSL. So I was signing, I should have signed I'm going. Well, I signed I'm going in my sign language. And the year 11s just looked at each other, looked at the TA, didn't know what to do, but because they know me, they knew me very well, they just burst out laughing, and they said, you know what you've said now, I cannot repeat it here, but it was very rude. So luckily I had my year 11s constantly when I was signing, picking out things like, yes, that might be Belgian sign language, Flemish sign language, but you do not sign that here. So,
I guess it's the same with teachers that are teaching in England from a different that aren't born here. So English is their second language. Because I remember we had a Polish teacher at school, and he would say certain things, and we'd be like, "Do you just know what you've just said?" Or he would gesture, like he was talking about. He told me this story where he was talking about. Circuits, and he was like pointing at the circuits and using his fingers and stuff, and the whole class burst out laughing because he just like he swore at them with his finger.
Yeah.
But for him, he was just like, yeah, I was just telling you about the different parts of the circuit, and he was completely unaware. But just like things get lost in translation, so I'm assuming they would have completely understood that you're not being rude. It's just
they knew. They thought it was hilarious. Yeah, they're still talking about that. Yeah, every time they see me, I think, okay, all right, yeah.
That's funny. So the first bit you were talking about how to create a dictionary. Yeah. And the second we talked about, what was the second top point?
Break down the language. So use the main words.
Storytelling, just using the main words. Yeah. What about people who speak English, can speak English, but want to learn BSL? Because I think there's loads of people out there that are now kind of going, right, there's other people that we can't communicate with. We want to learn BSL. We want our kids to learn from a young age. What's the best route that they can
in my opinion, the best thing is to go online and look at the Signature website. So Signature is the accredited provider of BSL courses. Because now with COVID-19, so many people are learning sign language because, you know, everything's online and but people will not sustain that. As, you know, as willing as you are and as wonderful as it is, you're not going to sustain it and you're not actually using it. So you need to go and do a proper BSL course, preferably with a fluent BSL user. So most preferably a deaf person who uses it as its first language, because then you'll be in a community of other people where you'll be practicing, where you have to speak the language, not where you're just going to do the odd word you learned of, you know, a YouTube video or something.
Is it not difficult though to learn from someone who's deaf, because they can't obviously tell you what the word is?
I know, you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed.
But I guess they can write it though, can't they?
Yeah. But you learn. You're building. You better learn what they're saying. You know, you
that's the only way you can communicate, right?
Exactly.
That's interesting.
But you know, it's everything. What, you know, they're signing is perfect because it is their first language. Their handshakes are perfect. I mean, you know, you haven't always got the opportunity to do it with a deaf person. You know, and there's a lot of BSL tutors who are hearing who are also very, very good. So I'm not the person to say, oh, you can't learn BSL from a hearing person. No. But if you can be taught by a deaf person, it's absolutely brilliant. The only issue is, of course, it's not cheap. And that is another thing. I mean, did you know that even parents of deaf children have got to pay to learn BSL? It is not, so it's, and the further you go through the ranks, the higher you go the levels, the more expensive it gets. And that's what puts a lot of people off, and I completely get that. But if you're really serious about working with deaf people, or if you're a teacher and you're thinking about, oh, I'm quite interested in that, I want to volunteer maybe in a school for the deaf, don't go unless you've got your level 1 BSL, because you'll be so at your depth. You'll be, you know, you will not be able to engage with the children or with the other deaf staff that is there. But yeah, go on the Signature and I'll send you that link as well. Go on the Signature website and they list all your local sign language courses.
That's really cool. I'm assuming they're all going to be online at the moment. So it's worth utilising your time at home.
Exactly.
Excellent. Right. So we're going to move on to the Home Ed Me challenges now. So I've got some boxes here. We've got science, technology, engineering, arts and maths. If you pick an engineering or an arts one, you might need some paper and scissors. I'm just warning you there.
No, I'm not doing stuff like that. No, let's do science.
Let's do science. Okay, I need more questions, guys. So if you are watching this, send me some more questions because I'm running out. We're getting similar questions week by week, which is fine because we get different interpretations, but it'd be nice to have some new questions. So let's have a look at this. Ooh, what's inside a black hole? Make your imagination run wild. What do you think is inside a black hole?
It could be nothing or everything.
Have you heard the recent theory? Well, I don't know whether you'd call it a theory, it's just probably an idea, that we're actually in a black hole, and then in our black holes, in our universe, there's more universes in those black holes. So it's like an endless, you go into a black hole, there's a whole universe, and then there's another universe, another black hole.
That is amazing. I can't even get my head around it. I mean, I can just about get my head around the universe and all the galaxies. The way, I mean, in my head, a black hole is something that sucks up all the energy where things disappear in. But I'm probably completely wrong, you know, but that would be my extent of my black hole knowledge, really. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but
you're right there that it does suck everything in because it's just a big, overwhelming kind of ball of density and gravity that's sucking everything in, including.
But where does all that go then? So
exactly.
It gets sucked in.
Exactly. Where does it go?
I don't know.
What
to the other universe.
Exactly. And maybe that's what starts the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And then you have you have loads of little Big Bangs happening when new black holes are formed.
Within the black holes, all their own little universes caused by the Big Bang in the black hole.
So when there's a Big Bang, that is the start of a new black hole. And
is it? Or does the Big Bang start in the black hole?
Does the Big Bang start in the black hole? Or does a black hole start the Big Bang?
Oh, getting a bit deep here.
Do you think we can travel back in time by going into a black hole?
No.
You don't
I
think?
don't know why I'm saying that, but my gut feeling says no.
Have you been fascinated by space and black holes and all of this?
No, not really. The only time I found it interesting was what's it called? That effect, you know, when you go in, when you travel to the moon and you travel back, then you're older, younger. Even.
Oh, special relativity.
Yes, that's it. And I thought, that's cool. But apart from that, no, it's not really been something I've
You're not fascinated by space?
I find it interesting and I love watching all the programs, but it's not something that I will go out of my way and read up about. Yeah, which sounds really sad, really. But yeah, I've got too many other things to read about.
I think a lot of people are fascinated by the unknown, and because we don't have all the answers about space, then they're more curious about finding out bits and pieces of it. And
I think that's probably why I don't like it very much, because I can't get answers.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. Like
exactly.
Math is beautiful. You got an answer at the end.
Exactly. Yes.
That's really interesting. But yeah, the black hole stuff always fascinates me. But yeah, you don't know what you're never going to know the answer. But special relativity, so I found that really fascinating when I learned that at uni, because we did a whole module on that. And I was like, wow, so if you're traveling on a plane a lot, you're like a split second younger than everyone else.
Exactly. You know,
just
eternal youth. Well, you know, how many split seconds make you look beautiful and wrinkle free?
So you just need to be traveling all the time, right?
That's why the air hostesses all look so stunning. It's not makeup, it's time travel. Special relativity.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. When I learned about special relativity for the first time, I got so excited. I went home and I tried explaining to my younger sister, who was very young at the time, and I said to her, I had to explain it in a child-friendly way. So I said to her, if we were to send a banana into space and it was traveling so fast, it would never go bad. Like, it would always stay ripe. She was like, wow, what's the point of that?
Yeah, I can see it with a banana, yeah.
Right, should we pick, do you want another science question, or do you want to try something different?
Go on, let's try some engineering.
Oh, okay, you might need some paper for this.
Right. Let me get some paper. I'll get some paper. Do I need scissors?
Let's see the question first.
Right, let's see what it is first.
Okay, so the question says...
Oh, I'm nervous.
Design a house model with one A4 paper, freestanding, remember, doors, windows, and a roof.
Right, let me get some paper.
A4 paper and a pair of scissors. So we'll see what we have.
Okay.
I think I have
got nice yellow paper.
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And you just need a pair of scissors. No glue.
No glue. No sticky tape. Right, let me get
tape.
some scissors.
Right, guys, if you're watching at home, you need to try this yourself and see if you can come up with a better house model than what we're going to get by Marijke. So we'll see what we can produce.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Obviously, it's got to have
doors, windows, and a roof.
Mm-hmm. Don't you worry.
Last time someone did this, they put too many cuts in too early on, and then they regretted it. They're like, oh no, we can't stick it together now.
Right. So, okay. So it's very modern building. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. So now I shall do a few adjustments.
I like the fact that you've picked a really simplistic design.
Oh yeah.
Cuboid.
I'm continental, you know. This is what we do. It's, you know, like IKEA.
Yeah. But what IKEA do is they slowly lure you in, and then they like, you have to purchase this now. All my drawers are IKEA. So the basic shelf unit, you're like, oh, it's only 20 quid, right? And then if you want to get drawers, there's another 20 quid. If you want a shelf in there, it's another 20 quid.
Right, so this is my door, which is also can serve as a ramp.
Oh, cool. So it's like a castle where you've got like a ramp coming down.
Yes, I've got a ramp with the moat on the other side. Right, okay. Now I shall do the windows.
Now you've got like holes on the side. Are you going to close those off? This is where like your...
shouldn't I? Yeah, okay, hang on.
This is where kind of your net building skills come in handy.
I know.
Cuboid.
Right. Hang on. So if I do triangles, hang on, triangles will... I do triangles and then fold it in.
Oh, you're going to do a folding one. Or a garden skills.
Oh. That's good.
I think it's harder with paper rather than card.
Right, hang on. Let's think this through.
You could just have flaps that come down.
Exactly. Why did I say engineering? Why did I think that was a good idea?
And then you can have like an outdoor kind of shielded balcony plate as well.
Right, hang on. Let me just see if my prototype is working. And then where's my door? Oh, hang on. Yeah.
Did you ever?
Yes, it's closed. It's closed. Hang on. I've got a door. I've got a closed up side.
Oh, I like that.
It's like a castle. Okay, hang on. I think this is
good. Closed there. That's really good.
It's good, isn't it? I'm quite impressed with myself.
I'm impressed with you.
Maybe I should start a new career.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you ever
designing houses from A4 paper?
Have you ever considered going into engineering?
No. No. Oh, you still ask me that after? Oh, hey, this is good. Can you see it?
Wow.
I know.
I'm impressed.
I am. Right, windows.
That's really good.
It is, isn't it? Right, I'll have a window.
You could set your math students a challenge where they have to have certain dimensions for a house. So they have to get their rulers out, take measurements, put them in the right place, and then they have to work out the area of the carpet. And
then they have to, because this is a scale model, then what will the real house look like?
Exactly.
And how many bricks do they need?
Oh, that's a good one. And then you can link it in with your B&Q work, where you
can
say,
exactly.
Which paint would you use? Why would you use that paint? How much paint would you need to cover this area of wall?
What is the area of the walls? Do that first.
There's so much. And then how many litres of paint would you need? Does the paint actually say how much wall it will cover?
Yes, it does. It says, so 1 till of Dulux, 2.5 litres, will cover 9 square metres for 2 coats.
That's quite cool. So you just need to work out how much wall space you've got.
Yeah.
Right,
look at this.
By your house.
I think that is pretty good, if I say so myself.
I think that's really amazing.
I did not think I would ever be able to produce something like that.
And in like a minute, you spent like a minute.
Beauty. It's a beauty. Oh, I still got some time. I didn't know it was timed.
Oh, I wasn't timing you, but I said that you've just basically spent a minute or two. That was really quick as well.
I know. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. There is no improving this genius piece of work. Hang on. I can't even show you. Look at that.
I think that's amazing.
I agree. There we go.
That's really cool. Well done. I think you met that challenge gracefully. I think that's amazing. It's been great interviewing today and learning about BSL and learning about maths and learning about your career as well. I've learnt loads. So how can people reach you? So you've mentioned a Facebook page. What's that called? It's called
Mrs. Walters Maths.
Mrs. Walters Maths. I'll put the links in, and then you've got a YouTube channel as well.
Again, Mrs. Walters Maths. It's all it's all the same name. Okay.
Brilliant.
And then I've got like a little Google website as well, and again, it's called Mrs. Walters Maths.
That's
So
nice.
if they Google me, it should all come up. If they Google Mrs. Walters Maths, you know, they'll have page after page of stuff that I've posted.
Brilliant. So how regularly do you put out your BSL videos on YouTube?
One every other week.
Okay, excellent. So there's probably a couple of videos that they can go and check on there.
Yeah, there are 3 there now that they can see. So the one is really early primary. It's on number bonds. And I'm also very interested in dyscalculia. So a lot of the things that I've learned about dyscalculia, I've actually incorporated in learning about number bonds, because number bonds is not just, okay, 310, what does that mean? You know, 37, what does that mean? So there's a lot of visual stuff going on there. And then I did one about square and square roots, purely because I was interested in the language, because why is a square number called a square number? So it's a lot about that.
And that's very nice and visual as well, isn't it?
Yes. And then what I would really like to happen is that people email me or comment and say, I would like for you to make a video on, or my child needs help with such and such. Can you please make a video on that? That would be absolutely brilliant.
That would be great. So I will share your links. Thank you guys for watching today. I did accidentally say in the last video that we did that today was going to be forensics. I got confused in the dates.
Well, you're talking to a foreigner. Is that forensic? No, I don't know.
In the same letter, right? So it's the same thing.
Exactly.
But I do have the lady coming in to talk about forensics next week.
Wow.
She worked in the forensics industry. She was a detective for the police. Now she's running.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
So what is she doing now for the police?
She runs workshops for kids and adults, and they're doing it online. Yeah, so you might be interested.
Yeah, because my daughter, who's going to be starting her A-levels, actually, she wants to. One of the ideas she's got is she wants to be a forensic scientist.
Well, you need to get on.
So I'll definitely, yes, absolutely, yes.
So she will be coming on next Thursday. So thank you guys for listening. Home Ed Me podcast every Thursday at 3:30 on Learn with Sid YouTube channel. I forgot my own YouTube channel. Thank you, Marijke, for coming in today.
You're very welcome.
And I'll speak to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.